And what is up? I was hoping for that reaction, sir. That is an homage to our special guest today. Before we get too far from everything we are discussing, hello and welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in live to this very special event. Josh Carey here, Pet Sittingology, and you are joining us for a very insightful training session. It's going to be on all things success. If you want to achieve any sort of success in any regard, it doesn't matter where you are, where you're coming from, or where you want to go, you really want to establish certain things, certain steps. In other words, success doesn't happen arbitrarily. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen inadvertently. Success on the definition you personally define happens very specific reasons. And I am so excited to be joined by someone we have today who has really defined success and has been so generous over the past 3 years to be in our world. Let me introduce the sales lion himself, Mr. Marcus Sheridan, to the show. How are you today, sir?
Josh, I'm doing great. Excited to be here. I am actually hailing from my closet office. I have a little house on the water, and that's where I am today. People are like, "What's that coat rack doing behind that guy?" And using my portable podcast equipment that I've come to love so much. I'm so excited to be here. Let's rock and roll, brother.
Let's rock and roll. So for everybody joining us right now, this is presented by our fourth annual Pet Care Visibility Conference, live happening in Las Vegas this October 4th through the 7th, 2015. If you are not on board, consider purchasing some registration tickets. We still do have a monthly payment plan option for you if that's the way you want to go. Regardless, if you love what we do throughout the year, you will absolutely love even more attending our live event. PetSittingLive.com has all of your details. Now, speaking of that event, which is our fourth, year 1, year 2, and year 3, we had the pleasure of welcoming one of our amazing keynote speakers. Marcus attended every one of our conferences and spoke to our audience. Now, I have to ask you, Marcus, why? What is it about us, about our humble little industry that allows you to return? You're busy. You speak all over the country, all over the world. I follow you on Facebook, Instagram, Google+. I see your ventures. What is it about our industry that keeps you coming back?
You know, Josh, I think it's, the first time you called, the reason I came the first time was purely based, and I'm not just saying this, you don't know what I'm going to say. I didn't know you were going to ask this. You don't know what I'm going to say. First time was because you're just flat out kindness and passion for wanting to help these pet sitter business owners. It was obvious, right? You said there's not going to be many people here. There's going to be like 20, 25 people. I'm like, wow, I don't know if I've spoken to an audience, that small this year. That'll be awesome. And it was one of the most intimate, friendly, kind, all those things. And I'm like, absolutely, I would love when you asked me to come again. And of course, the second year, it had, like tripled in size. And then the third year, once again, it did a quantum leap. And, you keep having to get bigger rooms and more people. And, it's really, really fascinating to see something that starts small and goes big. And I tell you, of all the industries, and I've said this before in other talks that I've given, Josh, I don't know of any industry that's more passionate and loves what they do more than the pet sitting space. And I truly mean that. And I've been in a lot of industries at this point.
That's true. And thank you, by the way, for acknowledging and saying all that. For everybody listening, thesaleslion.com is the place to find Marcus. Make sure you have some time cut out because there is a little bit of a rabbit hole, least of which is his podcast. We were just talking before we went live. I listen to and consume every word he says. I listen to all of his podcasts because he is doing what I want to be doing. He is doing what I want to emulate, and that resonates with me. And he makes a good point. Everything we talk about today, I want you to realize you can implement. It's not theory. We're going to show you how to make practical, actionable, tangible steps to achieve what we're talking about, least of which Marcus said we had 20 to 25 pet sitters during our inaugural event. Maybe that's what I hoped for or assumed or told you on the phone. We actually had 12, which so we had a good dozen pet sitters. But like you said,
a dirty dozen.
That's right. And the point is this: Marcus didn't show up because I promised him or said there's going to be 250 people there. And the point is, between that and look where Marcus is right now. He's sitting in his closet with a handheld microphone. Nothing needs to be perfect in your world, right? I didn't need to glorify the truth of the matter. I needed to come with authentic passion and just talk to you as a person. How important is authenticity in what we do day to day?
Well, I think there's a couple major points that you said there. You know, this whole quest for perfection is one that we will never attain. We'll never arrive at that place. And the ones that are crushing it online, Josh, those are the businesses, those are the people, those are the companies that are very okay with, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, an 8 out of 10. You understand what I'm saying? They're like, you know what? It is good. It might not be world-class, but I'll get there eventually. They're willing to fail forward. They're not obsessed with, if it ain't just right, I will not launch the thing. And that's one of the things I think holds up businesses, holds up blogs, holds up person making that first video, doing that first podcast episode, whatever that thing is, giving their first speech at a, you know, at a town meeting or something like that, you know, which I think every single person listening to this should be consistently educating the public on and offline. Right. And that's why, like you said a minute ago, everything that we talk about today is principle based. And because it's principle based, it means if somebody wants to apply it, they can. If they sit there and put themselves in a corner of, hey, I'm a pet sitter, I'm in some far off country, my niche is just too nichey, I don't know if this is going to work. You know, you're probably right. You know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. Love what you're saying.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate to everybody on board here, because you make a good point. The reason we get in our own way 99.9% of the time, right? For whatever reason up here in moving forward. And again, the point of this discussion today is about getting out of your own way so you can achieve whatever success means to you. And we're going to keep dissecting Marcus and his theories and applying it to what we are doing and what we want to do, because that's the goal. We all want the same things out of life. I was watching.
Josh,
yeah, go ahead.
I thought about something, and that is, you know, you've heard me say this before. Lots of times when we start this journey of business, even if we start a component of our business, let me say we start a blog or we start a podcast or we start a service offering that we weren't offering before with our business, we want to write it out, and then we want to see, okay, this is where I am and this is where I expect it to be. I'm telling you what, that's an unrealistic vision oftentimes. In other words, what I am more interested in is that I have a progression that I'm moving forward, that I'm willing to try the prompting that I'm getting, and I don't need to necessarily see where it's going to end up. If you think, if in your mind you have to see where it ends up, where that blog of yours ends up, where that site of yours ends up, where that new service offering of yours ends up, where that speaking engagement ends up, if you have to see where it ends up, you're probably not going to do the thing, because you won't see it. You won't see it until you start to walk the trail. You won't see how your business is going to form. You know, you might think you'll never be more than a $50,000 a year business. Then all of a sudden you're a $500,000 a year business. You say, how did I get here? How's it possible? Well, it's possible because you were open to the possibilities of what could be, and you weren't set on, okay, this is exactly what I think this is supposed to be.
And how much of a fear, perhaps, of failure comes into that and anything we might do day to day?
Well, I think it's something that we all deal with. You know, I think there's a couple major fears of that paralyze people everywhere. So the first major fear, of course, is failure. And I always like to say, Josh, okay, so if, and this is, I'm not, this is nothing I made up. This has been around psychology since the beginning of time. I always like to say, okay, so let's just say the worst case scenario does happen. What is the worst denominator here? And the worst denominator is often something where we can say, can I survive that? And you're like, well, of course. Okay, well, then why don't I do the thing? Why don't I do that thing? Why don't I do that? Like, if you're like, I've got to give a presentation on pet sitting or just like pet health best practices at a local community event. I've never spoken before. I don't think I can do this. Okay, so you can't do it. Let's say you can't do it. So what is the worst possible thing that can happen in that moment? Worst possible thing is you pass out on stage because you're so nervous. Everybody's now going to love you because they know you cared so much, and it's probably actually going to end up being pretty good for you. My point is, if you look at worst case scenario, you're oftentimes going to say, wow, I'm really overestimating what can go wrong here. The second thing is the issue or the fear of, I can't do it like that person. Well, because Josh has this amazing, website, or because he has his podcast and does such a good job of articulating his thoughts. I don't know if I could do a podcast because I don't think I could do it like him. And death by comparison is a major problem in every business. It's certainly a major problem in the pet sitting business because people are constantly comparing themselves, because I know how social your group is, man. And what happens is in your space, and this is every space, but your space is so social that people see people doing things. They say, I can't do it like that person. And because I can't do it like that person, I won't do it at all. That is a tragedy.
On that note, let's talk about doing it in terms of creativity or personality. And I like asking a lot of people that I have the pleasure of speaking like this with. Marcus, how important do you think personality is when we are running our own businesses and on the path to success?
Well, I mean, the likability factor is pretty significant, right? So when you say personality, what I hear is, what is your likability factor? And what people have to understand is that you don't have to be Marcus Sheridan, Mr. Whatever. People say I'm a really enthusiastic guy and all these things, like, oh, I can never be that passionate. I think everybody can be as passionate as they want to be. It's just that they show their passion in different ways. They might be more of a subtle, passion that, it's hard to describe this, Josh. But point is, we all can be enthusiastic. We all can be passionate. We can be likable in different ways, but there's no question about it. It's a major, major factor. It's what helped me build a business, helped me build relationships, helped me have relationships with people like you. The reason why I continue to do things with you far and away is because I find you incredibly likable. That's not me pandering you. That's the reality. I've been asked by many people to help them before in different ways, and I say no. So what is the difference between the two? Well, I value our relationship significantly because you've been good to me, and I believe in what you're doing, and I see you as a pioneer in your space. And I see that people in your industry actually apply things that they hear, which in many industries, everybody's just like, I don't know if this is going to work for us. Your industry was, man, right out the gate was like, of course we can do this. Of course we can be better teachers, better communicators. Of course we can do this online. Of course we can do this offline. Why not? And it was like, immediately I was like, wow, they're not sitting there putting themselves in that corner of we're different. They're saying we need to apply this. And I'm like, man, this is like just good salt to the earth people. That's why I think your industry is special. I know I've said it a couple of times, but I really mean it. And that's why I'm emphasizing it.
Well, thank you again so much. And on that note, Laura Capra, who wonderful to see you and everybody else.
I like Laura, by the way. She's passionate.
Yeah,
she's got
you've
cool
met Laura.
Things going on in the sidebar as well. She made me laugh with that one comment earlier about because everybody's so freaking passionate or we support each other. She said something very, very funny. I'm like, yes, that's exactly right.
And speaking of that, Tamika wrote, I'm watching this on my phone sitting in the doctor's office.
Yeah.
How wonderful is that?
Right.
Laura posted earlier in our Facebook group, going on the heels of you saying that one of the things you love about our industry and our community and group here is that we really want to engage and consume and apply. Yeah. We're not just listening. And something you said that me and Laura and all others always bring back is you said, I think it was during the second year you joined us, that I'm going to have a long presentation, a long discussion. Now, make no confusion about this. When Marcus speaks, he's not up in the front with a PowerPoint, etc. He is engaged. He is walking the room. He is talking to you. He knows everybody's first name in the room. But he said, what is it, 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 of you will not apply this. So for the 10% or 20% tops that apply the knowledge, good. I want to ask you a question, Marcus, that Laura said, make sure to attend the webinar that's happening in a few hours, this very one. Marcus is exactly what got me blogging on a regular basis. And due to blogging, we have gained more clients, more of our ideal clients, lowered our marketing costs, and increased our bottom line. Yeah. So I want to ask you, Marcus, how do you respond? How do you feel about positive feedback and reinforcement? And on the contrary, how do you take, respond, and absorb negative feedback? This is something we all experience, whether it's a bad review, which is either warranted or sometimes not really warranted. It's not the truth of the matter. I know we've been having dialogue on our boards recently about fear of negative reviews, that you will or will not do something or say something because you anticipate a bad review. So you might make better than ideal decisions based on that. So Marcus, you're in a very public position. I'm sure you get, and I've actually heard you announce some of these on your podcast, but personally, how do you take negative reviews and feedback?
Well, there's a lot of great points here. There's so much to say about, first of all, that comment of, hey, blogging. I want to talk about that. Let's make sure we talk about that blogging statement she made about how that changed her business, because I really want to define in this conversation what blogging is, just for those that, just to reiterate what that is.
Absolutely.
At the same time, getting back to what you said about negative reviews, if you get negative, Jay Baer just did an amazing keynote recently at Social Media Marketing World. He's coming out with a book this coming year, and everybody, a lot of your people know Jay Baer, of course, because you've been a big advocate of his with Utility. That's right.
From here, I might as well. I was going to lead into this, not to get too far off, but everybody, this book literally changed my world. It changed my outlook. It changed my business. It changed everything. Jay Baer, small print here, forward by Marcus Sheridan. If you do nothing else but read the forward by Marcus, you are so far ahead of the game. So for our second annual, we were lucky enough to have Marcus hook us up with Jay, and Jay provided all of us with autographed copies, and there's Jay's and Marcus's signed copy. I keep this book. So it is called Utility. Go and get this book. I promise you, you will never look at your business and what to write about and what to do and how to act the same. So please.
Yeah. And what's cool about that is, that book was a home run, and now he's going to hit another home run, and it's going to be called Hug Your Haters.
Wow. I love that. Hug Your Haters. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's really phenomenal. What he does in this particular keynote, what he did is he talked about how oftentimes when somebody says something online, all they do is want to be recognized that they were heard. And if they just recognize they were heard, oftentimes they'll just stop right there. In other words, they literally will stop. Now, this is not everybody. You're always going to have some bad apples. Mm-hmm. When I personally, and so my point is, when that book comes out, you want to make sure you check out Hug Your Haters, because it's going to be amazing. I've been, privy to some of it already. It's going to be just tremendous. You're going to love it very, very much. Okay. I've written about it on the sales line, in fact, already. Now, when it comes to how you handle this, number one, I think whenever you get negative anything, Josh, you always have to ask yourself, so is there any truth in what was just said? What surprises me is oftentimes there is truth in what was said. Now, you might be okay with the truth. In other words, Gary Vaynerchuk might get a negative review that says, the guy says too many F-bombs. Now, it doesn't make any sense for Gary to sit there and say, no, I don't drop too... no, that's not me. I mean, you need to say, this person's right. I do drop, arguably, certainly to some people, too many F-bombs. But Gary's made the choice to let that person go. Do you see what I'm saying? He's made a choice to let that person go. So, some of your people have seen me speak before. Some of the people that are listening to this right now have seen me speak. Many of those people, at first, when they first saw me, didn't know how to take me because it was a different style of presenting, a different style of interacting. And at first, some of them might have been put off. Eventually, some of them might have really liked it. And then by the second year, they were totally in the groove. And so, point being is, I'm okay knowing that 5% of my audiences are not going to like the style by which I present, or the style in which I write, or the message, or the service offerings, or the fact that you don't do certain things, right? And so, in other words, if someone says to you, I don't like that person because he doesn't work with XYZ cats or dogs. This is a silly example, but they must be too special for pugs over there, at Josh's pet sitting. Well, okay, so are you okay with that? Because you have to understand that when you have an identity, and every business has to have an identity, that you need to be willing to let people go. The happiest day in the life of a business, Josh, I can't stress this enough, is when you understand more who you are, more who you're not than who you are, more who you don't want to work with than who you do want to work with. The moment you understand who you don't want to work with, and the moment that you understand what you're not as a business, is the moment that you stop saying yes to those people and those services that are just a weight around your neck. You've done this before, Josh. You've evolved your business and you've evolved your clients. You've had to fire clients before simply because you realized they were not a good fit. I'm the exact same way. Now, the idea is that we never have to fire clients. And of course, clients ideally should never have to fire us because A, we deliver what we're supposed to deliver, but B, on the other side of the thing, we never engage in that which is going to bring us down, that which is going to make us say, why did I get in this business in the first place? I hate this thinking business. And everybody that's listening to this right now can think of somebody that they engaged as a customer where they had an impression, you know what? I don't know if this is going to be a good fit, but they said yes, Josh. They said yes because they needed the money. They took the money, and then once they had the money and had the stress with it, they said, you know what? The money isn't worth it. I've done it too many times. And I would like to think that at this point, as a business owner, I say no a lot more than I say yes. And because of that, I think I'm a lot happier, Josh.
Preach it, brother. Preach it. How many times that I think what you're talking about is you're trusting your gut, your intuition, your initial reaction. It is so valuable and beneficial to stick with that, as hard as it may be, and perhaps it takes practice. Marcus is so known for a bunch of things that I think he has really trademarked and made his personal brand and his mission, least of which is they ask, you answer. Yeah. We're not going to get into that right now because we have spoken so much about that. It's simply the idea that you should be blogging. You should be writing on your website as often as you can, simply answering as many of the questions, topics, thoughts, and concerns that your ideal and potential market will be having.
But Josh, let's look at it for a second. It even goes beyond that because it's not just answering questions. So if you just look at the, and we've talked about this before, if you look at the CarMax business model, they changed the whole entire used car space because they said, what are the biggest fears that people have when buying a used car? There's three major fears. Number one, people don't like to haggle. Number two, people are afraid that they're going to buy a lemon. And number three, people they deal with buyer's remorse after they buy a car. And so what did CarMax do to eliminate those fears? Well, they said, A, no haggling ever, period. It's impossible to have a haggle discussion in a CarMax. Okay, so that's number one. They eliminated fear. Number two, they offered a 5-day money-back guarantee on their vehicles. That eliminates buyer's remorse. You can bring them back 4 days later, right? Number three, they have this incredible inspection system. So you walk into a CarMax store and you quickly see, they say, do you know how our cars qualify to even get on that lot? And you realize, my goodness, they got to go through this whole testing system just to qualify for the lot. And so that gets rid of the fear of getting somebody else's problems or buying a lemon. Point being is, all those things were verbalized by customers for years in the used car industry, but nobody did jack squat about it. And so what they did is they said, how can we evolve our business model to eliminate every single fear that somebody might have if they're engaging, in this case, a used car company? So if you turn that on its head and you say, okay, what are all the fears somebody would have if they're engaging a pet sitter? And I'm telling you what, because they're giving you their children, I know there's a ton of fears. So my next question would be, have all those fears been eliminated on your website already and in your business model? And do you make sure those fears are eliminated when you engage with that prospect the first time as well? Ideally, you do it before you engage them, before you talk with them, because that immediately is going to make you different than the rest of your competition.
That is phenomenal. And you say we have to get the fears out before they become a problem. I was talking to Marcus before we went on as well, and I was showing him that a few months ago. I'm not joking when I say I consume everything he does, everything he says, all of his podcasts. Listen to them. They are just him for 30 minutes or so talking, which is great. I was
Which, by the way, Josh, by the way, not everybody likes monologue style podcasts, right? And so for a certain group of people, I'm not going to be a good fit because they want, 5 people talking or they want interview based. I said, I don't want to do like everybody else. I'm in the 1%. I give a monologue, me riffing on life. I talk about crazy things. I talk about business. I talk about life. I talk about personal. I talk about family. I talk about everything that comes to my mind. But what happens because of that, I am terribly interested in the podcast because it's fun to me. I enjoy it. I don't get bored of it. And people get to know me on a personal level that is so much deeper than the majority of podcasts out there. You only know that the host asks questions. My people say very personal things to me all the time. And so so when they do want to engage me, it's like they've known me forever because of the podcast. Sorry to interrupt you.
No interrupt. Which goes back to and ties in as one of the things that I think you're trademarked and known for is the fact that it's just as important, if not more important, to know who your audience or service is not for, who is not your ideal client. I think that's so valuable.
And so that should be on your website as well. You should have a section on your website that says who we're not a good fit for.
Yeah. Going back a few moments, I was telling Marcus before airtime here that one of his podcasts a few months ago, usually I'll just drive home. I'm listening to them. I'm nodding along. I'm thinking about how I can use it. But there was one a few months ago that I had to grab a napkin and just started jotting down notes. Yeah. So. And the reason
take a photo of that and send it to me just so I can see how what your brain was resonating with your brain in that moment, because I would love to post that as a photo on the next Mad Marketing podcast show notes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for posting my chicken scratch. So cool. But seriously, I really appreciate that, and I will get this to you.
I would love to have it.
And I brought it into the office with the full intention a few months ago of transcribing this to a piece of paper or to Evernote or something, but guess what? It never happened. So I said, oh, good. I'm having Marcus on. I might as well just have this close by. But the point is that even then, and I have it on my notes for today, and you certainly bring it up, I wrote the word trust in big letters because that is something that we always talk about. We're not selling the service per se. The very first thing is we're selling trust. Nobody is going to sign up with you as their go-to pet sitter, dog walker, or otherwise pet care professional if they do not trust you. So I wrote here how to instill trust because I know consciously, okay, I have to do that. Trust plays a great part. But how does someone like us in this pet sitting business, how do we best approach that?
Well, okay, so we've addressed a few of these trust components because that's, it's fun. This subject of trust, to me, that is the business we are all in. That is the one commonality that we all share. You, Josh, are in the business of trust. Anybody that's listening to this is in the business of trust. I own a swimming pool installation company, a swimming pool manufacturing company, and I own a marketing company, and they're all the exact same business. They are the business of trust. So the question is, what can we do to engender more trust than anyone else? Well, I think it starts with that philosophy of they ask, you answer. It starts with that philosophy of being willing to address your, all the questions that you get all the time, be it through text or video or audio on your website. It's the willingness to say, what are the issues, fears, concerns, worries, concerns that my prospects and customers have, like CarMax did, and address those as well, okay, and be very, very open with them. So those are the big ones. But the other big one that I think is critical to mention, and I think a lot of the people that are listening to this have probably struggled with this, is you develop trust. I develop trust with people because one of the things that I do, and you know this because you know me personally, Josh, is I have this, style of very concise, frank, talk when I am speaking. Like in other words, if you ask me a question, you say, Marcus, what do you think I should do about this? I'm going to give you a very frank answer. And, oftentimes when somebody is engaging with a prospect, they change the way they communicate and they soften it up. I'm not talking about in a towards being nice. I'm talking about they don't really say exactly how they should say it because they feel like if they are too clear in their opinions, well, then they're going to potentially lose the business or lose the trust. Whereas it's absolutely the opposite. Let me give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about, Josh. Okay. Yesterday, and I wrote about this on the sales line today. Yesterday, I had this company in Florida. This marketing manager called me and she said, I want to do this whole content marketing thing, Marcus. But the problem is I'm wearing a lot of hats right now and I just don't know if I can make it work. And I said to her, well, you need a content marketing manager. And if you don't have a content marketing manager, well, then you will find that you'll never have the time to do this because you are wearing too many hats and it's not going to work. Now, they're a bigger business, okay? That's why I suggested that they have a content marketing manager. And she said, well, I really think that I might be able to do this. And I said, wait. Let's just stop the conversation. I've been down this road. You cannot do this and think that you can just dedicate a little bit of time to it each week. The size of your company dictates that you need a full-time content manager. You know, they do something like $20 million a year, right? So I'm like, you need a full-time content manager. And if your business owner is not willing to invest in that, well, then it doesn't matter everything else we say here. It just doesn't matter. She said, well, could you give me at least a price on consulting? And she asked a couple pricing questions. I said, you're missing the point. Until your CEO says, yes, we need to bring in this person, then we shouldn't have any other conversations. Now, point being is this, Josh. Could I lose that lead? Yes, they could not turn into a customer. But now she knows that I'm dead on honest, that I am focused. I'm helping her to be focused. I have her best intentions. Okay. And because of this, I'm not going to engage in a bad relationship from jump. She also realizes, okay, Marcus is the expert here. I either go with what he is suggesting or I just don't engage him, but I know this is going to save me a lot of problems down the road. And it's hard to really paint this picture, but everybody has conversations like that. And you've got to have frank discussions all the time with prospects and with clients so that they continue to respect you as the business.
And there's so much there about the word trust and how to understand yourself, your business, your philosophy, your goals, your vision, and be confident, I guess, enough in that to speak that.
Yeah, so there's one more part about this, and this happens in your blog copy, your website copy, all these things. And so Matt was in the comment section earlier of this, and he says, hey, I love that. Who we're not for, I'm incorporating that soon. And if Matt does that, what he's going to find is that if he's really open about it, people are going to start to say, hey, I noticed that you said on your site that you don't do these things. And it's the same thing as, let's say that you're addressing a question that naturally people would think would be a biased answer. In other words, is a pet sitter worth the money? Could be the blog article. Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
The problem is a lot of people would write that article and they would just say why a pet sitter's worth the money. But the fact is, somebody that really understands the psychology of trust, what they're going to say is, people come to us all the time at Lions Pet Sitting and they ask us, is a pet sitter really worth the money? Now, you might think that the answer we're going to give you here is absolutely yes. But the reality is, sometimes the answer is no. What this article is going to do, it's going to give you a frank look at when it's worth it to hire a pet sitter. It's also going to discuss when it's not worth it. And at the end, you'll be able to decide which is the best choice for you. By you doing that, Josh, in that style, you'll engender dramatically more trust than if you just come out and give me 10 reasons why working with a pet sitter is a good investment or a good choice or the smart thing to do or yada, yada, yada. See, nobody likes to present the other side, but it's the ones that present the other side. They are the ones that engender the most trust.
Wow. So much to absorb and comprehend, because it's like light bulb. Yes, there's so much there. Tell me about the benefits of taking all of this, your personality, your creativity, establishing your trust and credibility, your teaching method and styles for our sake, for the businesses we run. Talk to me about what it means to go out into the world and not just sit behind your computer with these posts.
Yeah, dude. Businesses approach me all the time and say, Marcus, man, I need leads and cash flow now. And I've got this plan for my blog. When do you think I'm going to start to generate revenue? Well, that's the thing. You might generate revenue tomorrow from, producing text, video, educational stuff on your site, or it might take a month, it might take 6 months. It's hard to say. A lot of it depends on how you share it. And the good thing about the pet sitting space, it is a very social, because we're talking about a loved one, because we're talking about something that everybody adores for the most part. This is a very social space. And so, any content that you produce is ultimately going to help you in a major way on all your social media platforms if you are consistent over time, because you're only as good on social media as the value you bring to that platform. A lot of people say, well, Facebook doesn't work for me. Well, it doesn't work for you because you don't work for it. Once you understand that you work for your Facebook audience is the moment you understand, okay, now I see what's actually resonating, what's getting results. Now, at the same time, if somebody is into pet sitting, they need to be a world-class networker offline as well. They need to understand how to establish relationships outside of the internet, because it's a very localized business and there's a lot of trust involved with this, right? And so, one of the things that everybody should be doing that is listening to this is they should be the go-to source for pet teaching in their county, of a visible source. Or their area. When I say their county, their city, their town, their area. So let me give you an example what I'm talking about. Okay, there are groups in every city that are constantly meeting, that are needing some types of speakers or presenters, or it could be 5 minutes, it can be 20 minutes, it can be whatever it is. Rarely do businesses get engaged with that stuff. But, it's like, I don't know what percentage of people have a pet, but it's a pretty high percentage. It's a pretty high percentage. So if you go into a group and you say, 10 ways, I'm going to give you a 10-minute talk on 10 ways you can have, whatever it is. It could be about cats or dogs, right, or just something. This is something that people are going to care about. And as soon as you do that, you're now going to be viewed differently by those people. And those people are going to tell their people. And it's just like, expands, bop, 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 bop. How many people that are listening to this have actually gone out and spoken in public and given presentations, at some of these different events, maybe a county fair or this or that? And the reality is most of them have not, Josh. That's one of the major things they can do. They need to have a great relationship with every single vet. They need to refer businesses to vets. They need to talk about the vets on their websites, and they need to make sure that the vets are very, very aware of them. And they need to say, what can I do for you, Mr. and Mrs. Vet, to make your life, your business better? And if you are in a good relationship with the vets, there's a very good chance you're going to be getting dramatically more referrals than you're getting. And it's the same thing with the pet stores. At any other store that's indirectly related to your industry, you've got to have relationships with those people. You need to be knocking on the doors. They need to see your face. They need to know who you are. And you need to mention them on and offline.
Yeah, one of the traps I hear that I hear over and over, and it makes me cringe each time, is when I hear a pet sitter say, well, I got into this business because I not only like dealing with cats and dogs, but I don't like dealing with people. So if I can spend my time all day with the animals, I am happy. And I always say, yeah, it's sad because I always say, well, until the cat or dog can write their own check and pay you, you sort of have to get out and be a people person, dare we say. And what's amazing about networking and how this all ties in is about a year ago, Marcus, as I was naturally following you, I came across something you posted on Facebook. And it was just a simple congratulations to your friend, Derek Coburn, who happened to write the book called Networking is Not Working. And It was a whole look on Forget the old school definition and style of networking. Here's the new way you should and could be getting out into your world, making an impact, growing your business. And my goodness, this is all tying in. The conversation we're having right now is all tying back into that. So what I did when I saw that, based on the philosophy of networking, because I already had a relationship with Marcus, and I knew that this guy, Derek, who was otherwise unknown to me at the time, had this extraordinarily good book on a topic that we can benefit from. I said, hey, Marcus, could you somehow put me in touch with your man, Derek here? And we have an hour-long session like this with Derek. I'll post it for our group so you can watch that or rewatch it. So how amazing is that it's all tied into the same darn thing?
Well, it's absolutely tied into the same thing. And, you mentioned something even bigger. Is a big subject here. Is we get into business based on passions, but we forget that we are in business. We have to turn a profit, and we have to do things that are not necessarily comfortable to us. If we want to continue to do that which we love, we have to be able to sustain our lives, right? And, it's sad to me that people get into something that they love, call it pet sitting, if you will, and then all of a sudden they struggle financially. And because they're struggling financially, you've seen this, Josh, right? Because they're struggling financially, they start to lose some of the love that they had in the first place for that thing, right? And so point being is we need to do what it takes to grow our business. We need to go outside of what we generally are or what we think we are. One of the big mistakes that I made with the sales line, Josh, is that I thought that just by being online, I was going to generate enough business. That was dumb. It really wasn't until I was very engaged with some local communities and people and getting out to some groups and things like that, that my consulting really took off. And I was like, man, I just have been so focused on the online thing that I almost forgot this powerful principle of offline relationships. I think we need to marry the two. I definitely know there is a marriage between the two, and we need to remember that as we go forward.
Yeah, now I know we're talking about trust. We're talking about showing up each day and putting in the work and following your passion. And I also know that a good number of us, myself included, I'm sure it happens to everyone who tries going into business at some point for themselves. But at some point we were talking about fear earlier. You get a little once bitten, twice shy because somebody really stings you and burns you. Maybe an employee winds up taking your clients and, you thought you were best friends, whatever it is. So, Marcus, I know that in 2003, 2004, thereabouts, when you were exclusively active in your pool company, your bookkeeper embezzled all of the money over the course of a year or so, which left you and your company bankrupt. Yeah. So what did you learn from that? What did you take away? And how do you deal with that on a trust issue?
Yeah, I used to say being a business owner leathers you up very, very quickly. And the tough thing about it was, 2003, 4, 5, 6, those were the glory years for pool companies because the economy was, the false economy was bustling. So anybody could get a loan for a pool because everybody had false value in their homes because it was easy to have home equity lines at the time. And so despite the fact that we were selling these pools, what happened was we had this huge embezzlement. This lady took over $200,000 from us. I was such a trusting business owner. I let her handle the books. I gave her certain authorities I shouldn't have given. I just was naive because I was so very trusting. And then it turns out that she had a gambling addiction and she almost, she tried to burn the house down and all the evidence in it, wow, in a figurative way. Luckily, we caught her. And I think we got like 30,000 out of it. We didn't have the insurance that we needed. And so for quite a few years, I had a lien on my house from the IRS. My two business partners had a lien on their house from the IRS. And those are difficult times, especially the IRS has no compassion. They have no soul, literally. I mean, there's not a soulless organization in the world in the IRS. They don't care that somebody stole $200,000 from you. They just want to get their taxes paid. Because, by the way, what I didn't say is she didn't pay our taxes during that time. Now, she would go to
Okay.
the bank and act like she was showing me the slips that she was paying it. But, so, I mean, it's just bad mistakes. We recover from that after 2004 slowly to the point where we can start to make a profit again. And then, bang, 2008, the economy crashes and we're back at it again. And so instead of having a bunch of money in the bank, like a lot of swimming pool companies did, because it had been such a good, 5-year span, we had spent all that extra money on trying to save the business. Economy crashes. But you know what, Josh? I look back on that time period, and even though you can't appreciate in the moment, everything that I have today, I wouldn't have been known as Marcus the sales lion. I never would have spoken at, the Pet City conference, or these other 100+ conferences I've spoken at in the last couple of years, if the economy doesn't crash. You see what I'm saying? And maybe not if we don't have that embezzlement. And even though she did that, I completely forgave her. I let that go. And I look at it with gratitude because I know it has made me who I am. I glorify in the fact that the economy crashed in 2008. Because it changed my whole life. It's the reason for the forward of utility, and it's everything in all the blessings that have the blessings, but the blessing I now have. My relationship with my wife, the relationship I have with my 4 kids is better today than it's been in the last 15 years. And of course, the reason for that is the piece that becoming a world-class educator has given my different businesses, which is ultimately led to a domino effect, has given me more time to do that which I love, right? Which is be with my wife, be with my kids. That's what it's all about. That's the deeper purpose, right, of all this. That's the deeper why. That's why we get into business, to have the time to do that which we value the most.
Yeah, wow. So is everything that you're saying there, basically everything happens for a reason? That's one of the
It doesn't.
mottos
It
you could.
sounds cliche.
No, but that's why I'm bringing it up. Yeah.
If you are like obsessed with the idea that I am going to turn that thing into a catalytic moment of my life that is going to take me to new heights, well, then amazing things can happen. And I really, really know that to be true. I gave a keynote. My first major keynote was at Content Marketing World, like 3-4 years ago. You've heard me talk about it, Josh. I was asked 8 months in advance. For 8 solid months, I thought about this keynote. I planned it out in my head. But because it didn't go right the day that I gave it, and I ended up going on for 20 minutes, and they had to pull me off, basically come on the stage and say, hey, you're out of time. I wish I could give you the details behind it, but it was the most embarrassing, humiliating, and frustrating moment of my professional career after being a pool guy, because I totally had failed, and it was my dream to have this keynote with 1,000 people. It was my big event. And, I said, okay, so what am I going to do? Am I just going to stop? Or am I going to turn that into what is going to be a positive? And of course, it's become a major positive for me since that time. And I can look back on it and say, I'm grateful that it happened. I wasn't grateful at the time, but I'm certainly grateful that it happened.
Wow. And how important is religion or spirituality in your world?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, in my world, I think everybody needs to have, they just need to go beyond themselves, right? I think the purpose of any type of religion is that you look outside of yourself and you say, what is my higher purpose? How can what is the greater good in so many ways? And, we can get so interested in ourselves and our own problems and our own issues and feel sorry for ourselves. In the moment we start to serve somebody else, then all of a sudden our problems go away. I mean, that's the whole core to Alcoholics Anonymous, right? The whole core of Alcoholics Anonymous is that you're serving somebody else, you forget about your own problems. That's the whole purpose of having sponsors.
Yeah. I had asked you before a couple of weeks ago when we were preparing and setting this up, I wanted to get your take on your mantra, on what keeps you going, on what sits in the back or the forefront of your mind each day. And you wrote, I said, what is your mantra? And you wrote, embrace your genius and be the best teacher in the world at what you do.
Yeah.
Embrace your genius and be the best teacher in the world at what you do. File that away, because that's what Marcus Sheridan believes. So let me ask you, Marcus, are we all genius?
So what that means to me, Josh, is that each one of us has a special set of talents and gifts. What's wrong with our society, though, if you look at society today, they actually don't like it if you are too overly confident in a particular gift or ability. And I'm not talking about arrogance. I'm talking about society as a whole almost shuns feeling like, in other words, if I can't go around and say to people, a lot of people, I know that I've been given a gift to be one of the best presenters in the world. And this is a talent that I have, that if I don't use it, I'm going to be selling myself short, and the person that gave it to me, I'm going to be selling that person short as well. And I'm going to feel remiss if I don't take advantage of that talent that I've been given. And because I know that I've been given that talent, I need to do something about it. Now, some people hear me say that, Josh, and like, it's kind of like cocky, one of the best presenters in the world. Now, I feel that way. I feel like I've been given the skill sets to do that. It doesn't mean that I necessarily am all the time. It means I have the ability within me. Now, what I'm not, I know also that I'm not a bunch of things. You know, I'm never going to be like a technical guru. I tried to learn source code for programming. I couldn't do it. I'm sure I could have, but it was too hard for me. I tried to teach myself how to play the piano. My fingers didn't work well enough, and it just didn't really happen like I hoped it would, right? So I'm saying that's not my genius. That's not my thing. And my genius, though, is communication in a certain set of forms. I embrace that. And so instead of doing the societal norm of saying, it's not really my thing, I say, no, that's my thing. I'm going to run with that, baby. And so that's why I say you got to embrace the genius within. Now, somebody might say, well, I'm not sure really what mine is, Marcus. Well, that might be the case. But I think we all have certain pressures saying, yeah, I know, I love that. That is my thing. And it's certainly, if we have a willingness to go after it, that's when we can start to see what our potential is.
I love it. I love it. So embrace your genius is a yes, we all have our own form of genius, and we better step up sooner than later and determine, figure out, and use whatever that strength, that passion is.
Yeah, just like there's a lot of people like in your industry that might think I am a pet sitting company, but actually what they are is right now they should be traveling the world teaching dog owners how to raise a puppy quickly. I know that sounds ignorant because I'm ignorant of the space, but you understand what I'm saying, Josh.
Sure
like that's
do.
actually what they're supposed to be doing. And they know they're really good at that, but they're like, I don't know if I could. I mean, that's my dream, but I'm not going to really talk about it to people. And because they don't talk about it to people and they don't verbalize it and they don't act upon it, the thing never happens. Well, I think that's crap. You know, I think we get those promptings for a reason. And the more we follow these promptings and impressions we get, the more that we will receive them as we go forward. And so, you know, I mean, when I was a pool guy, I felt so frustrated because I said, you know, I'm a teacher, I'm a communicator, and all I do is I go into homes and I sell pools, and I felt like a stallion tied up. And eventually I was ready to run, you know, and luckily I was able to run, but I had to have that story. I didn't know it at the time, right? I didn't know it at the time. And today, I continue to allow this thing to evolve, allow me to discover what I'm really trying to say, what I'm trying to do. I think everybody that thinks they understand, like I was a pool guy, then I was a marketing guy, and tomorrow, I don't know if I want to be a marketing guy. You know what I'm saying? I might be something that is a lot different than that 10 years from now. I expect that I will, but I'm willing to figure it out as I go and embrace this. Okay, yes, that thing is possible. I know we're being kind of theoretical here, and it's hard to put concrete examples to this, but I'm just saying is most of the people that are listening to this, they have a higher calling than just straight pet sitter, and there's nothing wrong with being a straight pet sitter. Nothing wrong with that. But my point is, there's something within the industry, something with their love of animals, something that they can and should be doing. They have to figure out what that is. Pet sitting is the ability to find that thing out.
along the lines of teach and teaching, because one of the biggest resistant angles I hear when I talk about write articles, provide content, educate your audience, the first thing I hear is, I don't know what to write about. And I say, that is not true, because you live and breathe your business every day. You talk to clients constantly. You're emailing with potential clients constantly. You're face-to-face on consultations and meet and greets constantly. You're talking to employees or ICs or potential new hires about the business constantly. Those are all the things you write about. You have 10, 20, 30-minute conversations with brand new potential clients on the phone. That's what you write about. You know what's happening. That is
Well, I mean, the
a form
moment
of
you
teaching.
say,
Yeah.
I don't know what to write about is the moment you've stopped hearing and listening to your customers. And it means you're out of touch. And that you shouldn't be concerned that I can't figure out what I'm supposed to be writing about. You should be really concerned about the fact that you're out of touch. Because if you're out of touch as a business, it means you are going to have problems moving forward. The idea that we don't know what to write about is such a bad myth because there's a deeper core, much more core problem as to what's going on.
And I think it's more of a stall. It's a fear tying into everything we've spoken about. Before we wrap up, I want to get your take on this. You somewhat recently had the amazing good fortune of having the New York Times knock on your door and call. You can read all about the experience and the outcome on thesaleslion.com. You can see how they sent a photographer to Marcus's place, and they did a whole write-up and cover story about him and what he's doing. How did you get the attention of the New York Times? How did you get them calling? And more to the point, how can we get our own version of the New York Times calling, whatever that might be to us?
So this is going to be a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon answer, if that's okay, or 7 degrees, whatever it is, Josh. It's not an easy answer to your question, all right? Because I could tell you, well, I got lucky and I spoke at a conference and it happened to be that a reporter was there, okay? But let me tell you what really happened. I'm going to try to tell you this quickly. Anybody listens to this, you're going to see a pretty neat chain of events if you're paying attention, all right? So the economy crashes. I own a swimming pool company, and I'm going to lose my business, so I start to read about this thing called inbound marketing, and I learn about this tool called HubSpot. And so I start implementing inbound marketing with my pool company. And as soon as I'm doing this, within 6 months, I realize something special is happening. So I say, I need to teach other businesses about this. I just need to tell people what I'm doing. And I started a website called thesaleslion.com, okay? Because I started that website, all of a sudden, people started to ask me questions about the story of this pool guy that was doing these things. And they said, hey, could you maybe share that at my event, at my conference, right? And so then all of a sudden I started getting people asking me to share things. Well, no big conferences called until HubSpot was sponsoring Content Marketing World #1, which was 4 years ago, okay? 4 years ago. And they were told by Content Marketing World, would you like to send 20, we have a spot for you as a sponsor to have a 20-minute speaker. Do you have somebody that you would like to send? And they said, you know what? This guy that's been writing a lot about his HubSpot experience and what he was doing, Marcus Sheridan, this pool guy, he would be great to have out to that event. And so they said, okay. And so Content Marketing World gave me this itty-bitty little 20-minute talk at Content Marketing World #1 in what was the worst room of the conference. The night before, though, Josh, I go up to everybody that I had been reading online that didn't know me yet, and I said, hey, I'm giving a little talk tomorrow. I would love it if you're there. I would love it if you're there. I would love it if you're there. And so all these people, all these influencers showed up, Josh. And then I proceeded to give the greatest 20-minute talk of my life. Because I gave that talk, I was invited to speak the next year to give the keynote at Content Marketing World. In that same moment, when I gave that 20-minute talk, there was a lady from this event called NMX, or Blog World. She said, I want you to come speak at Blog World as well. I had 5 offers to speak at different conferences over the next 10 minutes. So because of that, I spoke at Blog World. And in Blog World was this gentleman that heard me speak there who worked for a company called Vistage. And Vistage, he heard me speak, and he said, my organization is putting on a big conference called Vistage International. I would love for you to come speak at our conference. And so I spoke at Vistage International. And in that little room where I spoke there for about 100 people, there was a reporter from the New York Times. And he said to me after I was done, hey, I'd love to do an interview with you on this. We did the interview. We spoke for 90 minutes on the phone. They sent down the photographer to my swimming pool company, and then lo and behold, 5 days later, without even realizing what was happening, it's on the cover of the small business section of the New York Times, and everything from that point totally changed. My whole life was changed after that point in time. But you see, what most people don't realize is the series of events, and there's actually a bunch I didn't go into there, that there's more involved, but there was a series of events that led me to that point. You can't plan to be in the New York Times, but all you can do is continue to walk forward, progress, embrace that genius within.
Absolutely beautiful. I literally get the chills and got the chills listening to that story. It's just about showing up, putting in the small progress steps, taking small, specific, and deliberate action to achieve whatever grand goal you have, whether it's getting the New York Times to show up and write about you, or something bigger or smaller or different or more personal. It just doesn't matter. I'm going to load something on the screen here. Just to reiterate, if you like these kinds of dialogues, if you like what we do throughout the year, you will absolutely love joining us live in Vegas for our 4th annual conference.
If you ain't going there, I don't know what's wrong with you. I'm serious. I mean, I'm telling you, if I was a pet sitter, that would be the one thing that I would do without thought. I mean, literally without thought every single year. Just like as a HubSpot user, I go without thought to inbound every year, because to me, that is my place with my people. That's where I'm going to get away from the business. Instead of working in the business, I'm able to work on the business. I get a chance to be inspired because you're outside of your normal space, and there's all these great, thinkers that are around you, and questions and answers and all these things. I'm not saying this because Josh didn't ask me to say it. I'm just telling you, this is where the magic happens, is when you get away from that thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. So here is the book that changed the course of everything for me and 40 or 50 of our peers and industry colleagues. Utility, the book, utilitythebook.com, I believe, is the place. Is that correct? Where they should research?
I think so, yes.
Google it, look it up. When, out of curiosity, Marcus, is Hug Your Haters due out?
Next year, Hug Your Haters will be out. Yep. But he's already talking about it, but yeah, it'll be out.
Awesome. So thesaleslion.com, how can people find you, love you, embrace you, get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm on the Twitters at the Sales Lion. You can friend me on Facebook. I'm friends with tons of pet sitters on Facebook. Let me tell you what, I'm friends with tons of them.
It's so true. Marcus is active personally on Facebook, and I'll look at the comments and I'm like, oh, I know that person. It's all pet sitters in your stream there. Yes, carry on, sir.
And of course, you can check out my site. It's at thesaleslion.com, or just email me if you have questions. Marcus1 at thesaleslion.com is my personal email. Happy to answer any of your personal questions.
Wonderful, wonderful. With that, I can't say thank you enough. An absolute pleasure talking to you. A pleasure seeing the ongoing dialogue here. PetSittingLive.com. If you're interested in seeing us in person, you know where to find me online, on Facebook, around the interweb, like Marcus says on the Twitters. Thank you so much, Marcus. We'll certainly see you around and talk to you soon.
Thanks for being part of such a special industry. I really, really appreciate you all. And I just love reading the sidebar chats because it's this great community. I was reminded of that once again today. You all take care. Appreciate you, Josh.
Likewise. Thank you so much, sir. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you, everybody. Take care.